Right, it's time for my What Am I Sowing and Growing guide for October. And the greenhouse is absolutely packed full at the moment, actually. I mean, all of the things in the main containers, things here, are all the fruits, tomatoes, cucumbers, strawberries, all that sort of thing. Loads of different types of tomatoes, hanging basket ones, cordon ones, that will be eaten all the way through until winter. And down here on the seedling bench, I've got all of my seedlings. These are all the ones I'm going to plant out tomorrow in the low tunnels and cold frames as I'm clearing my peppers and various other sort of crops from summer. And those are all the ones down there that I'm going to be planting out in the polytunnel about a week later. I've just made a video about them all, so I'm not going to sort of dwell on that, but I might put a link to it in this video description. So if you're interested in what I've got growing right now, then yeah, take a look in that link. I've also got a few other little bits and pieces and things like baby beetroot leaves and things like that for salad mixes and things like that. And of course I've got my dehydrator in here, which is busy dehydrating all the apples and pears. But today, because there's quite a lot to get through, I'm just going to focus on my sowing guide. What I'm looking at here is my sowing and growing database for October. And you can look at it too in the link in the description below. So there's no need to make any notes. All the details that I'm going to talk through probably are in this database, and you can click on entries in the database and things like that for all the sort of nitty-gritty details. I've also got a newsletter, which I highly recommend actually. I've got thousands and thousands of people reading that now each week. And that goes through all the nitty-gritty details as you need them. So what I'm sowing each week, importantly, why I'm sowing particular things, because there's a sort of logic to the way that I garden that is easier to explain in a sort of weekly fashion. So there's the sowing bit, what I'm pricking out, what I'm potting on, what I'm planting, what I'm harvesting that week. So you get a good feel really for what it's like to be self-sufficient in fresh food all the way through the year. And all the problems I'm having, which is important because we always have problems in gardening. And I don't want you to think that I don't have problems. I have plenty of problems too, but also try and talk about what I'm doing to try and mitigate those problems, the workarounds that I've got, how I deal with the pests and disease problems and things like that. So let's just get on now with what I'm doing in October. And the first thing is I'll be putting my elephant garlic in. So the elephant garlic I'm putting in though is not the garlic we're going to be eating next year. It's the smaller cloves that I put in to grow rounds. And then the rounds are what we then plant for our harvested elephant garlic a year later. So we kind of do it in two stages. That gives us really nice big elephant garlics next year, the year after for harvest. I tend to put the rounds in between other crops. So if I've got a lettuce bed, for example, I'll put the rounds in the gaps between the lettuces. They'll grow up in between the lettuces. When I harvest those lettuces, which tends to be by the end of winter, that then leaves plenty of space then for the elephant garlic to continue to grow on in that bed. So that's sort of the way I do my elephant garlic. Not everybody does it that way, but I like doing it that way, basically. And you can look at my elephant garlic video, which I might link actually in the description if you want to see the results of that and how I do it all. Next up, my third succession of brassicas, which I'm overwintering. So my first succession is here. The second succession I sowed today, and today is the 28th of September. And my third succession I'll be sowing around about sort of the 5th of October or thereabouts. Sometimes, I often don't get these dates exactly right, but something around that sort of time I'll sow my third succession. So my idea is that by about the end of April, somewhere around the end of April, and it does depend on the weather, these overwintered brassicas I'll be harvesting. So I'll plant them out towards the end of winter as I'm clearing beds of lettuces and spinach and things like that. Pop them in cold frames, low tunnels, whatever, under fleece, whatever I've got available in terms of space. And then they'll grow on nicely. So by the end of April, start harvesting the first of them. And then I'll continue harvesting all the way through May and into sort of early June. And that kind of covers the hungry gap for me in terms of brassicas. So we always have a really nice hungry gap when we don't go hungry. And pretty much it's all of our favourite brassicas really that we're picking at that time. And of course we'll also be picking purple sprouting broccoli as well, provided that survives winter, which it sometimes doesn't, because we're getting some wild winters now. And yeah, sometimes the purple sprouting broccoli gets a real battering. So yeah, that's the way that I do the overwintered brassicas, and I'll leave them in the polytunnel over winter. I'll pot them on once, and they'll be nice little plants by then when I'm planting them out in February or early March. So next up, lettuces. Well, you can see I've got a lot of lettuces down here, but the way I like to do my lettuces is that most of them I want to harvest by, certainly all those there will all be harvested and eaten by the end of winter. So then sometime in early March, when these lettuces are also kind of getting replanted or eaten, and not all of them survive in the polytunnel, when they're starting to fail and I'm starting to replant them gradually all the way through sort of March time, I want my next batch of lettuces coming through. So and I want my favourite spring varieties. And in order to get that to work, that timing, I tend to plant them about 9th to 15th of October, something like that. And plant them out in a low tunnel, just as I'm probably clearing maybe my last bed of peppers or something like that. And I'm doing Riccia, Navara, Flashy Lightning Butter Oak, Grenoble Red, and Half-Flex, all beautiful spring varieties, and hopefully if they survive winter, and they normally do in a low tunnel, provided it's nice and sunny. So I've got to pick a sunny spot. I don't have many sunny spots on my allotment, there's a lot of shade, but yeah, I'll try and pick the sunniest bed, and hopefully they'll be ready in March, just as I say, right on time. I won't need very many lettuces by then, of course, because by March sunlight sort of energy is starting to pick up, and you know, I don't need anywhere near as many as I need in winter to feed my family of 10. So next up, this is a bit of an experiment for me. I've never done this before, which is to sow direct in the ground in one of my cold frames some carrots about the 10th of October I'm going for. I normally do it in the polytunnel in containers a bit later in October. I'm still going to do that because this is an experiment, and if it goes wrong we'll be without carrots, which we're almost never without carrots all year round, every week of the year. So yeah, I can't afford to take a risk, but what I don't mind having is in spring, you know, May, June, I know June isn't spring, but May and June anyway, which is the time when we're shortest of carrots, I'd like a few more. So I'm going to put some in cold frame, see how that goes. And I'm doing them a bit earlier than I do in the polytunnel because it's a bit colder in a cold frame than it is in the polytunnel. And so I need to give them a little bit more time to get germinated, but I don't want them to be too big. I want them to be little plants, maybe you can see that, about an inch tall. As we go into sort of December, they won't really grow much more than an inch tall all the way through December, January and early February. Then they start growing, they'll be about 2 inch tall by the end of February, and then they'll sort of really romp away in March and April, and then we'll start harvesting them in May, and we'll keep on harvesting them until June, sometime in June probably. And by that time the carrots that I've sown back in sort of February sort of time will be ready. So yeah, that's where I'm doing carrots this year. We'll see how it goes. Now next up I've got my broad beans. I normally just do aqua dulse, but I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do them this year. I normally do my earliest ones in the polytunnel, always in a container because it gets too hot in the polytunnel for them by the time we get to sort of mid-spring until I take them outside. But I'm not sure whether I'm going to do them because I've got a new way of doing broad beans now, which I'll talk about later on in the year, that gives almost as good results as doing them in the polytunnel, but it's just easier and it gives me more polytunnel space for something that really is going to benefit from that polytunnel. Something like sugar snap peas or French beans or something like that. So yeah, I probably won't do them, as I say, because I've got a new way. Next up is the green garlic. You can do your green garlic pretty much any time in October into November, really. I just generally get it started as soon as I've cleared all my tomatoes. I'm currently clearing them and they're all sort of rotting on the vines at the moment because we've had quite a lot of rainy weather. So clear out all those tomatoes in those tomato containers, just give them a bit of reconditioning, give them a bit of put a bit of food in, give them a good weed, top them with like 1 inch of fresh compost just to reduce the weed pressure on them. And yeah, then we get a nice harvest of green garlic in April. And that tends to be when the stored garlic quality is sort of starting to reduce a little bit. So as it reduces, we ramp up our harvest volumes of green garlic. And by the time we're finished eating the green garlic, the fresh garlic is ready in June. So green garlic is just ordinary garlic, there's nothing different about it. We just tend to choose our smaller cloves, plant them closer together and just eat the whole plant rather than just the bulb. So next up are the Asian greens. So I've got some nice Asian greens just here, which I'll be planting out in a week or so's time by the look of them. I've got red stem pak choi and tatsoi, my 2 favourites. And I'll be planting these in a cold frame. What I then find is by the time we get to midwinter, the quality starts to decline a little bit. The leaf quality starts to decline. So certainly by January, they're not looking so good. I'm putting these in a cold frame, so it might be a little bit earlier than that. Certainly sometime anyway in that period, middle of December, late December through to sort of early January, the leaf quality starts to decline. By February, they start to go to seed. So to combat that and give me some really nice Asian greens in that interim period, I'm going to be growing them on this shelf here. Underneath these grow lights in the greenhouse. It looks lovely growing in here when the grow lights are all on. So partly the reason I love to do it is just because my den overlooks the greenhouse and I just like to see all the grow lights in here. But also because I just really like high quality leaves in my salad mixes. And so that's what I'll be doing with those Asian greens. And then I'll start some later on in the year, which will go back into maybe the polytunnel beds or into cold frame beds or something like that for a harvest in March. Next up, field bean tips. So nowadays, because the mice keep eating my field beans if I plant them in the ground, although some people have said just plant them 6 inches deep and then the mice won't get them. So I might try that as well. I'm just going to do them in modules and we'll see how that goes. And basically any ground that I've got spare, I just generally pop field beans into it. And we'll be eating those in March. Field beans are really nice. You can eat the leaves, especially if you just pick the growing tips rather than the leaves. And obviously the growing tips are made up of leaves, but they're made up of sort of really nice, high quality little bunch of leaves. Pinch off the growing tip and then new shoots will come up from the base and then just keep on pinching those off every few weeks. And they're really lovely. So it's a really nice spring crop, just grown outside. Then next up are the spinaches. So what we find is that spinach in midwinter on the allotment, the quality declines quite a bit. It's okay for cooking, it's not really good enough for the salad mixes. So I take my 2 favourite spring varieties responder and rubino, put them in big trays down here and grow them again under grow lights in here, and the leaf quality is fantastic, just like it would be in spring. So that makes a big difference. I know obviously if you don't have grow lights you can't do that, but what you can do of course is just start a winter spinach, something like giant winter, and grow that under a cold frame or something like that in a sunny spot, and you get reasonable leaves, but again, as I say, not so great for salads. Right, next up, sugar snap peas for the conservatory. Well, again, this is an experimental thing. I'm always experimenting, of course, like all good gardeners. I really love sugar snap peas. I don't really want to be without them. I've just taken my last ones out on the allotment. I've got a little tub down there which I'm trying in the greenhouse, but really what I'll be trying is some in the conservatory, and I've got at the moment cucumbers in the conservatory. I'm hoping to keep eating those all the way through until into November, maybe as far as December, if I can get them that far. Once they've finished, they will eventually finish, of course, I will pop these sugar snap peas in and see if I can get a harvest of sugar snap peas sometime in, I don't know, January, February time, something like that. I'll see. I've got grow lights in the conservatory, so lots of grow light games I can play. Next up are the baby leaf beets, again for midwinter, again grown in big trays in this greenhouse, again under grow lights. I've also got them on the allotment, but it's the same old story. By midwinter, leaf quality starts to decline, and so for baby leaf, anyway, for salads, we'll still be picking obviously chard and things like that outside, but and beetroot, mature beetroot leaves, but the leaf quality for salads isn't so good. So again, it's much better in here under grow lights, and as I say, I've got the space, so that's what I do, and that means we can get salads with really nice quality beetroot leaves, chard leaves, all different colours, really nice spinach leaves, really nice lettuce leaves, claytonia, lamb's lettuce, salad onions, radishes, things like that. So we get a really nice salad all the way through winter. And we make up a lot of salads all the way through winter every week of the year, really. So yeah, I got this idea of doing the baby beetroot leaves and chard leaves and things like that from the Canadian growers, but of course their light levels are so much better than ours, and their day length is so much longer than ours here in the UK. So yeah, I have to resort to grow lights to do the sorts of things that they do. Next up, carrots again, but these are the carrots that I'm going to do in big containers, sort of this deep sort of containers, in the polytunnel, and I take those outside in April, because I find that if I leave them in the polytunnel longer than early April, they tend to get mildew. In fact, some of them did even get mildew this year, even though I took them out in April, so you do need to watch it. Partly that is perhaps me just underwatering, because by April I'm a bit distracted with other hobbies and not doing as much gardening. But anyway, I do 2 batches. I do one sort of the middle of October and one towards the end of October, and that just gives me like a bit of a staggered harvest. A little bit less likely that they'll all go to seed in June. And then I'll be harvesting my yacon. And what I tend to do then is I just take the yacon tubers and plant those up in big pots and stick them underneath this bench here. And they just sit in the damp compost until sort of April, May, when they're ready to be replanted again. I do all my yacon in containers because it's just so lovely when it's harvested from containers by comparison from the ground. And then finally, that's it. That is finally. So yeah, lots going on, but of course most of it needs a greenhouse or a polytunnel or grow lights. Not all of it, but most of it. And all the stuff that doesn't need grow lights is all on here, ready to be planted over the next 2 weeks. So, as I say, do take a look at my newsletter if you want to sort of follow along with my adventures. And my name's Steve. This is the Outgrow channel. I'll see you soon.